Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday, December 19th, 2017 meeting of the City of Ann Arbor Parks Advisory Commission. It's about 10 after 4, and we're here in council chambers. Colin, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Jackson? Here. Commissioner Gallardi?
Here.
Commissioner Santa Croce?
Here.
Commissioner Morrison? Commissioner Kraut? Here. Commissioner Borgsdorf? Here. Commissioner Ramaswamy, Commissioner London, Commissioner Apple. You have a quorum.
Awesome. Item B, approval of the agenda. I actually have an item, courtesy of Colin, F3, resolution to recommend approving a contract for the replacement of the Veterans Memorial pool filtration. Needs to be kicked back to January. The bids are taking a little longer, so without objection, I'll strike that from the agenda. Any other changes or additions? Great. Hearing none. Item C, approval of the minutes of the October 17th, 2017 PAC meeting. Changes, additions, motions? Is there a second?
There's a comment. It looks like it's lacking the vote tally for, was it, I think, item G3?
Yeah, we need to update the minutes to reflect the final vote on the Fuller Road Station resolution.
Do you want to table these till next year? I mean, next year, yeah, well, actually, next year. Next meeting, which would be in next year.
We can approve them with an amendment.
My only, just to reflect the vote, I think it was 7-2 in favor of approving the resolution.
Yeah.
I think the two nays were Commissioner Kraut and myself.
Yeah, that's correct.
And if the minutes were sort of
Right, so
reflected that, then that's fine.
And just a typo that on page 7, my Apple's name is spelled wrong.
Oh, I see it. You're right. Okay, so we have two changes. With those changes, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. Item D, public commentary, 3 minutes per speaker. Glasses. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak? Please step forward and tell us who you are.
Thanks for giving me a chance to speak. My name is Henry Buchtel. I live in Ann Arbor. I live right on the edge of Burr Park, and I'm here to present the results of a petition that I started. Alrighty, so the title of the petition is pretty straightforward. Let's create a dog run in Burr Park. We have more than 90 people that have signed it, 95 as of today. I'm going to give you a copy of everybody's names. It's done through change.org, so you can actually see who they are. I wanted to actually start by reading the petition so you know what people were signing up for when they signed this petition. So this will just take me a minute. Burr Park is awesome. Swimming pools, tennis courts, baseball and soccer fields, the food forest, and acres of open grassland. It's no wonder that many a dog, with the cooperation of their human, is tempted to take off their leash and stretch their legs. But let's not forget that Burr Park also has an elementary school, summer day camps, 2 nearby preschools, and neighbors who may or may not appreciate being approached by unleashed dogs. And of course, the local ordinance that no dogs are allowed off-leash in Ann Arbor's parks. Sooner or later, there's going to be an incident that brings us all to a boil, but we could be proactive here and create either a fenced dog run area, or, this would be a first for Ann Arbor, off-leash hours for the entire park. In the 2013 Dog Park Survey by the Parks Advisory Commission, one of the most requested features of a dog run or dog park is that it be walkable. In other words, that it be a neighborhood park. As the largest open space in the area, Burr Park attracts dog owners from the residential neighborhoods bordered by I-94 to the south, Stadium to the north, and Packard and Platt to the east and west. The 2013 survey led to the publication of the recommendations and guidelines document, which laid out the necessary conditions for a successful dog run. Key among those are size, 1 acre or about 200 by 200 square feet, and a 1 to 200 foot buffer for neighbors, good parking, mature shade trees, etc., all of which Burr Park is able to offer. So the question at the end of this, Would you like to see a dog run in Burr Park, or would you prefer off-leash hours? In either case, sign the petition, leave a comment, and let's get this started. So I think this is the official beginning of that, presenting this to you folks right here. Let me just give you a sense of the timeline here. I'm a dog owner. I love going to Burr Park and Washtenaw County Farm Park and the other parks nearby. There was an incident in April which was brought to my attention where a child was chased by a dog off-leash in Burr Park. Not harmed, fortunately, but you never know, right? You don't know what dogs are doing, and especially for a child. So that inspired me to find out more about the process of getting something started here, some kind of solution to that. I started out by reaching to my local councilman, Zach Ackerman. He put me in touch with Julie Grand. They basically explained what this process is and what the history of it is in Ann Arbor, the need for private-public partnership. What I started doing at that point is talking to neighbors, talking to local businesses. There was enough interest in this issue, enough positive interest, support, that I decided to do a petition online, which I'm presenting the results of right now. I started the petition in early September. A week later, I put a little post on what's called the Nextdoor app or community discussions. You can do it through your phone or online. What it is, if you're not familiar with it, is it allows discussions to happen just within a particular community. So Allen is what it's called, really just the area around Burr Park and Washtenaw County Farm Park. So it was at that point, during that discussion, that the number of signatures on the petition shot up, within a matter of days. The discussion was level-headed. It was respectful, which was a real pleasure because it was happening online. There were 81 replies. Definitely opinions on both sides, a lot of enthusiastic support, some not in my backyard type of responses, but respectful. And I kept everybody in that forum aware of, I'm doing this today. I was going to do it last month, but that one was canceled. Since then, the signatures have continued going up and up. Now they're at 95. What I'd like to present to you guys is a copy of the petition with an introductory letter, a copy of all the signatures, a copy of the comments that were left on the change.org petition. And also, I went through the Nextdoor discussion, which is, of course, public. If you're on Nextdoor and you're in that neighborhood, you can read through the entire thing yourself. What I did is I took all the identifying information out of it and tried to condense them to either comments or questions. So I have, this is 4 or 5 pages just of that information from that. I understand you have your own process for getting community opinions, but I wanted to, fill you guys in on that as well. Just about the signatures and the change.org, I don't understand the process, exactly what the process is for identifying where a signatory is from. I have an acquaintance a few streets down from me. It says they live in Milan. My wife apparently lives in Ortonville. To the best of my knowledge, that's not correct. But the process, when these numbers shot up was when we were doing this discussion on the Nextdoor app. So I'm pretty confident they really do represent people who would walk to the park, and that's really what we're looking for here. So thank you. I trust this process will be fair and that it'll really serve the neighborhood. Of course, I have my own interests, but your job is to take it out there and make sure that it's really good for everybody, or the majority of everybody, as many people as possible. So just let me know who to give this to, and yep.
Thank you for coming.
Okay,
Thank you.
Is there any need to stay the rest of the Thank you. Yeah, just please keep me updated if there's future meetings at which this will be discussed. Please let me know, and I'll share it with the other people who are interested. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that'd like to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to item E, special presentations. E1, Community Action Network Annual Update on Bryant and Northside. Derek Miller, Director. Welcome, Derek.
Hello. Thank you for having me, folks.
Thanks for coming.
All right. So as you can see, the presentation that's currently pulled up is some of the wonderful kids out of the Bryant Community Center in the Bryant neighborhood. Just a quick anecdote, that is one of several honor roll students from our tap-in cohort of students out of the Bryant Community Center as well. So for this presentation today, it is more or less a summary of the services Community Action Network provides out of the Bryant and Northside Community Center, which has been the contractee since 2008, mid-year about 2008. And since that time, we've grown our operations quite substantially and having a greater impact in the community. One of the measures that we look at is the leveraging of Ann Arbor Public Schools contract with Community Action Network, which is about $130,000. And our operating budget between the two sites is at $340,000, which means that we're bringing in roughly 2.6 times more financial impact in terms of the programs and services that we're providing. Quite frankly, where our true strength comes as an organization, as a nonprofit, is in the non-financial resources that we leverage as an agency. So here you'll see a long list of the different types of programs and services that are offered in groups that participate in our community centers, majority of which are directly provided by CAN as well. We can actually have a conservative estimate of over $2 million worth of goods and services that are being rendered out of the Bryant and Northside Community Center as well. And that's actually an increase of about $200,000 in goods and services from the previous fiscal year. In other terms, about $1 that we spend in terms of the programs and services that go at those two locations results in about $6 in much needed resources for low-income families. And this is just some example of the different food services that we do as an agency. We actually have some raised garden beds at the Bryant Community Center. We have food distributions as well, and holiday parties, Thanksgiving potlucks, and a lot of other things as well at that particular location. And just so you get some context of the personnel or the human capital that is behind the operations at our Bryant and Northside locations, is that we have 2 full-time staff. We have approximately 30 to 40 seasonal staff, some of which are work-study students from U of M or Eastern, but some of them are seasonal staff during the summertime as well. We have roughly about 10 interns or more per year, many of which are coming from the U of M School of Social Work, but also from a variety of other sources as well. And at just these 2 locations, we have had over 800 unique, unduplicated volunteers at those locations as well. CAN is also an AmeriCorps Vista host site, and so we actually have several of our full-time, year-round Vistas that work that is affiliated with the programs and services out of our Bryant and Northside Community Centers as well. And then also, we had received about 10 full-time summer associates for 9 weeks, fortunately free of charge, which allows us to do a lot of the programs and services that we do out of those locations. This is also one of the tools that we leverage and why we're able to, on a skeleton crew, be able to have such an incredible impact. We actually have an online training platform that we use at every single staff, intern, volunteer, Vista, that interfaces with our agency goes through and covers all the essentials of what is needed to know about CAN, but also about the quality of services that we provide. But that certainly is not the extent of the tools that we use. Here's another one that we've recently unveiled and have started to use this fiscal year, which is an online registration portal that we use for the participants in our after-school programs, Aid to Expeditions, our art and design program, summer camps, youth works. All of these programs are available and free, which is something worth noting, is that all of our programs and services that we offer are free of charge. And we specifically focus on under-resourced families. And you'll notice at the very top there, the holiday wish list. We are wrapping that up as we speak. At the Bryant Community Center location alone, we've had about 100 kids that filled out their wish list, all of which are being fulfilled, and each of which are getting 4 gifts per child, 2 need, 2 want items, roughly valued about $100 per child. And so that is just one of the many services that we provide. But to get a better understanding of the impact that these programs and services are having out of those 2 locations, one of which has been our steady marker, which is our high school graduation rate, has bumped up from 96% to 97%. where in our public schools for their economic peers is 72% in this district. So we're talking about a quite substantial uptick in performance on that measure. Also contributing to why we have that outcome, and one of the other strategies that we focus on is attendance. And so we actually have a 97% school attendance rate for the students that participate in our programs. Not only is that higher than the typical student or the students of the same economic peer group, but it's actually higher than the typical student in our public schools. And it actually translates into more than 8 days per school per year, or per student per year during the school year. One of the other new measures that we've been doing is the percentage of our program participants that either maintain or improve academically, and it turns out that it's 98%, which is quite substantial, particularly with the population that we work with. There's actually a typical trend of regression as the academic years go by. One of the other ways that we actually analyzed this was by those that had improved either by a full letter grade by the end of the school year, or had maintained all A's and B or AB average in school. And it turns out 88% of our kids in that program met that mark. This year, we also added our Can Art and Design program to the Bryant Community Center location. The analysis that you see on there is actually pre-Bryant Community Center involvement, where our art and design program was actually at several of our other locations. And what you actually see here is that the students that were at the different locations that participated in this program were actually performing much more significantly across 8 of the 9 youth development domains that we track. The one exception being homework completion, and the irony behind that is because they're doing the program and not doing homework completion, and so it kind of makes sense. Fortunately, due to some increases in funding and an advisory group that has done an excellent job of rallying behind that particular program, we've now been able to incorporate that into the Bryant Community Center, and certainly expecting similar results. And another one of our major food programs that we do is the food distributions and the meal programs. So last fiscal year, we ended up serving over 1,200 unduplicated households that represent over 3,200 unduplicated household members. From our measure, we look to be the largest food distributor in Washtenaw County that works in collaboration with food gatherers. For those that aren't aware, the nature of our food security network is that food gatherers is the primary procurer of food resources, and they work with agencies and congregations to ultimately distribute it out to the clients. And so in terms of that particular element of that network, Community Action Network is, if not the largest, certainly right up there in terms of total food distributed. We also serve more than 10,000 meals at the Bryant Community Center location, has a value of over $30,000. And we distributed over 456,000 pounds of food that is worth over $822,000. And it's actually an increase of about 105,000 pounds of food as compared to last year. So this is another breakdown of kind of seeing the general trend in the increase in service delivery that we have through Community Action Network at those locations. The graph on the left is, keep in mind that the current calendar year is not done, and so that is fully expected to surpass 2016's total pounds distributed, but that is currently where we're at for just the Bryant Community Center location food program. And you can see the trend since when CAN started operations out of the Bryant Community Center, which happened mid-2008, and we've gone from, really 2009 is our first full year, and that was under 100,000 pounds, and we're well over, consistently over 400,000 pounds of food distributed. And another measure is the increase in participation in the education programs that take place at the Bryant Community Center as well. And we've gone from 58 unduplicated participants to 91 as of this current fiscal year. We also expect service delivery to see another significant uptick once the renovations start to take place and ultimately get finalized at Bryant Community Center. That particular location will roughly double in terms of square footage. And so that in itself will likely increase service delivery as well. The reality is we're starting to feel the strain We have been for quite some time. We've been pretty successful in mitigating some of that strain. We have been able to increase quite significantly the number of unrestricted contributions that we receive from community members in terms of individual and corporate contributions. But the reality is that the demand on services is certainly far outpacing that particular increase. And there's other cost drivers that are occurring that is certainly adding to the strain, certainly of which is the Ann Arbor living wage, which is currently at $14.65 an hour. It increases every year, which is perfectly fine. And why I have this in here, it'll make sense in a little bit. But also, we are an AmeriCorps Vista host site, and there's a cost share. So it's not a free resource to our agency. There's an actual portion of the living stipends that the AmeriCorps Vista members receive, and that has been increasing for our organization over the years as well. It is admittedly worth its weight in gold because we're talking about, for CAN, $44,000 translates into 12 full-time people year-round focused on capacity building work. We're easily talking about over $300,000 worth of labor expenses that we have as a result of that particular program, and has been a big reason why we're able to do as much as we do as an agency. There's certainly inflation as well, which for the purposes of this, I've just had at the 3% rate. And there's also the added wear and tear on our equipment and the replacement costs that just comes naturally with the increased service delivery. And along that has supply consumption has gone up as well. One of the factors that is contributing to the strain is that we are in a multi-year contract with Parks and Recreation, and we are in the fourth of the 5-year contract, which is at $130,000 every single year. Just to get some context of how that strain starts to be felt, if we correct just for inflation alone, over the course of the 5 years, there's about over $40,000 loss, if you want to call it that, that we feel as an agency due to the lost ability of the purchasing power of the funds that we receive. And for the current fiscal year, if we did have an inflation-adjusted contract, we'd be operating with a budget of $142,055 as opposed to the $130,000 that we have currently. I do want to wrap up on one final client vignette. It's one of many success stories that we've had as an agency. This child, or actually I should say young adult, is far from a child. He is honestly, like, when you talk to him, he's pretty much equivalent to a 50-year-old man. He is a great example and as a product, quite frankly, of the Bryant Community Center and the work that we do there, and also of many community members. When we initially had worked with him, it was actually my first time working for CAN, which is at the beginning of our contract Parks and Rec at the Bryant Community Center. There was a lot of challenges that were going on, and not only in the home environment, but for him personally as well. That ranged from a variety of emotional regulations to falling behind quite substantially academically. So much so that there was even instances in where I had to remove a bat from the individual's hand because he wanted to assault somebody, or that he contributed to a bus accident, and a variety of other quite significant issues that, quite frankly, could have sent him down a much different trajectory. But largely because of the involvement of not only our agency, but also of a lot of other community members. Quite frankly, when he hit high school, it finally started to click. But at that point, he had fallen very far behind academically and still had a quite significant challenge ahead of him. Fortunately, we actually were able to tap into some more community resources, and not only were we providing the services at our particular community center, we were also coordinating wraparound services in terms of academic support outside of our agency to further supplement that work. Once you fast forward to this last summer, not only did he graduate from high school, he has become the national champion in his weight class in Greco-Roman style wrestling. He was the runner-up in the other form of wrestling, which eludes me. And is also in his first year at MSU with a full ride scholarship, and is well on his way to become not only very successful adult. But quite frankly, he is an amazing member of our community, and I'm sure he'll be, and certainly comes by every so often, and is just frankly one of the small example, or one of the many examples that we have as an agency of what has translated from these services.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
So it sounds like you're struggling a little bit with the contract scenario, which has a static amount every year.
Correct.
And if we were able to structure that to account for, at a minimum, the expected inflation, that would assist the agency in delivering all these services?
Absolutely. Certainly moving forward, that would help quite significantly. There is the cumulative effect that we are dealing with. We're just like every nonprofit, you work with what you have. That's just the reality. But given the not only the effectiveness of the resources that we use, but also the high demand of the resources, of the services that we provide, it's difficult, honestly, to not try to find every resource possible to make it happen. The other thing that I didn't mention is that this is not the only source of income, and it's we actually have we do receive some funding from, let's say, coordinated funding, and that is actually on a multi-year funding cycle. It is a very competitive funding pool as well, and we already know that the next cycle is actually going to be flat, possibly even regressive in terms of total funds available. And so that is certainly a concern that is out there, plus the natural effects of inflation with that particular funding source as well.
Colin, could you explain to me what the timeline of the contracting and stuff is?
Yeah, so I've had a couple of conversations over the last couple months, speaking to Derek about this matter. The contract that they're in now expires in about a year and a half, June 30th of 2019. Got it. Yeah. I can say, you know, from the time that I've spent in this position, it actually lines up quite nicely as to when CAN started to provide the services. So I've seen what they've done and seen the increase, which is, I think, highlighted very well and very clearly in the presentation you just saw. What I could see as an approach moving forward with a multi-year contract is to actually build in an escalator if that's CPI or if it's otherwise arrived at, I'm not sure. Anytime we do a contract for multi-years, it's always contingent upon the budget actually being approved by City Council. So you could have a contract that says that we would increase by X amount every year, but if there happen to be budget cuts across the city, that may not be able to be implemented in a future year. As for what we can do now, I've been speaking quite a bit to Derek about that. And I think that there's an opportunity this year, at least, to potentially amend their contract this year to provide for some additional operating costs. And that would come about as a result of the Park Fairness Resolution, where we've got a little bit of extra money in the budget for things like this or for other expenses. So I would expect that staff would come back with a resolution suggesting that either next month or the month later.
I mean, the other thing you might do is just, if putting the CPI escalator in the contract's problematic, you might just do the math you did there, come up to the grand total and divide by 5. So that first few years you're over, and the second few years you're under, but it averages out to give you that, that CPI.
Yeah.
But this is the third or the second contract you've had? I think it's the third
I think it's
contract.
the third. The first couple was, I think, annual, and then we were
Yeah.
biannual.
Yeah, they're for 2 years. So prior to the expiration of this, the contract will go out to bid again. And actually, last time, I think we were able to do it in such a way that you know, it's pretty obvious that its Community Action Network has the knowledge of this area and the experience. So I think we would be able to work that way again in the future.
The other part of my question was just about timing. If the next contract is in sorry. Oh, and then it turns green. Takes me a few months to figure that out. If the next contract, whatever, would start in 2019, what is the timeline? When would that, separate from any escalators or amendments now, when would that come to us?
So if the current expires June 30th of 2019, we would want to bring to you the contract probably in March of 19, maybe before that, to make sure that there's also time for council to see it and to react if it, for some reason, would actually take a number of meetings at council.
Alan?
I was going to say that, you know, it's sometimes hard to determine what inflation would be a priority, so that's an issue. That's just one of the comments. The other thing was really for Colin, which is, you know, if there is park fairness items, certainly, you know, it would be nice to be able to have some review of those things. Certainly, so we could maybe suggest, you know, what our opinions are about prioritization and things like that, so.
Yeah, and that would be if the resolution comes forth, it would explain where the funding would come from and kind of allow for that conversation for sure.
Thanks for coming.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Moving on, item F, new business. F1, Open Space Millage Program Annual Activity Report. Ruth. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I'm here to present the Open Space and Parkland Preservation Program Annual Activity Report that's in draft form right now. So this covers both the Greenbelt program and the Parks program that's part of the acquisitions for the city parks as part of the millage. Basically, a quick summary of the activities, and this covers the fiscal year. So this would go from July 1st, 2016 through June 30th of 2017. We closed on one purchase from BRE Nixon Road Associates on 26 acres back in December of 2016. And if you agree a little bit later on in this meeting, it will become parts of the Oakwoods natural area and be named that. And then also we had a second closing, and that was an 18.46 acre property that we closed on together with the Greenbelt Advisory Commission. So it was a joint project from the two commissions for the part of the city of Ann Arbor together, and the county will own that property. So this was done in partnership with the county, and this is located just outside of city limits in Scioto Township, and we closed on that back in January of 2017. If there's any questions on the acquisition part of the year? Quick update on the financial statement. So the financial statement is not currently in the draft activity report, but it will be put into the final version once it is posted. But as of October 31st of 2017, the parks balance was $5.8 million of the millage, and the Greenbelt portion was $5.6 million for a total of $11.4 million. So we are ready to go for more acquisitions when good projects come our way. So once you have signed off on this, the Greenbelt Advisory Commission has already seen the draft report. So once you have signed off on it, then we are pretty much ready to go and finalize it. And I will work with the city's communication team to do that. And then it will be posted online.
Questions, comments? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
F2, review of first quarter Parks and Rec fiscal year 2017 financials. Colin.
Thank you. I spoke earlier in the week with Commissioner Gallardi as the Finance and Budget Chair, and we reviewed these. all in all, I don't have a whole lot to say, which is good, because it means that things are trending in the direction of the budget. This is a snapshot of us almost halfway through the year. And what you can see in the forecast is that the numbers are very close to the target. So at this stage for the revenue, we are anticipating 4.754 million as opposed to the 4.768 in the budget, which is less than 0.5% of the budget in terms of variance. The expenses are also quite close in that respect. At the moment, we anticipate them coming in at a little bit under 6.1 million, and the budget is 6.15 million. So again, essentially within 1% of the budget. At this stage, there isn't anything which provides me any cause for heartburn on these numbers. They're looking good. The time of year when we have things which will really impact the forecast would be March, April, and May. That's when we start to receive a lot of revenue for things like the day camps, for the memberships, instructional classes, and things like that. So at the next time when we do a forecast, which will probably be May, I'll have that information at that time. But I would say for now, things are in line pretty much. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add, Commissioner Gallardi.
No, just that I'm always amazed at how we're able to get to 1% of something like this, which says to me we're right on track. So
It's pretty amazing.
good work, Colin.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Awesome. Moving on. F3 has been stricken or struck. F4, resolution to recommend purchase of golf course maintenance equipment. Colin.
Thank you. So this is, if you remember, a year ago, staff came to PAC with a resolution to approve the purchase of equipment for the golf courses. And that was the first year of a 3-year plan to replace old equipment at the golf courses. And when we do it, to get the new equipment into the fleet funds so that they're actually paying toward a replacement cost for the time when they have to be replaced next. As I said, this is year 2 of the plan, and there's an approved amount of $175,000 for this year. What you have before you is a resolution to approve the purchase from Spartan Distributors for $140,000 for 5 pieces of equipment. And then in the 3rd paragraph of the memo, I wanted to share also that we've got 3 additional pieces, because each piece comes in under a certain threshold amount. These purchases actually do not have to go to council because they don't exceed $25,000 from one company. But if you add in the expenses for those 3 pieces, we come out at $173,823, which is within the budgeted amount of $175,000. I think the only other thing I would add is by having the equipment move into the fleet fund, it also places us in the same position that we were kind of a couple of months ago for the Zambonis. When this purchase will come up next, whether it's in 7, 8, or 9 years, the money will be there to purchase them at that time. So it's, I think, the kind of the responsible way to move ahead with equipment purchases like this.
Alan.
You know, one thing that I didn't see that I usually see is, you know, the other bid company. I think there was only 2 last time you did that. So, it was odd that it wasn't there.
So there is what's called a state contract with Spartan Distributors. That's what the NIPA stands for. In the resolution, it's a National Cooperative Purchasing SIM. There are two main companies that would do golf equipment. One is Spartan, and the other is John Deere through Toro. It's really, they're both very much the same prices. Our existing fleet is Spartan. We're very satisfied with the quality of the equipment, but also the quality of the service that we receive, because these are pretty specialized pieces of machinery. They're going to be worked on by Spartan. They, over the years, have done a very, very good job of when we have a piece of machinery down, they bring one out for us while the repairs are being done. So that's the reason that there's not a list of all of the other bidders, just because they're already pre-approved, if you will, as part of the cooperative purchasing contract.
And these are, I mean, it seems like they're about 35,000 a piece on average.
Yep.
Other questions, concerns, motions, discussion?
One quick question. In the draft of agenda that went out 2 days ago, was there also another item about maintenance of the golf equipment as well?
No, there was, what was left in was rather embarrassingly part of the resolve clause from last year's resolution. So we had 3 pages in instead of 2, so darn, I was hoping nobody would notice that. Yeah. I'm also very pleased to know that everyone reads the packet. It's great.
Well, I don't make assumptions here. Bob?
Yeah, just one thing I want to point out in this, and that is, because we reviewed this earlier this week as well. As we start to set up the budget in the future, we will have to identify an amount to go into that fleet fund, so that when the day does come to replace this, we will have paid down that. And that's, we're gonna have to find about $21,000 to put into the fleet fund in future budgets, which pays for this over time. I think we'll be able to do that, but just in full transparency.
Yep, thank you for that. And to add to it, we will be able to add it into the FY 2021 budget as part of the preparations of that, because we do the 2-year budget cycle. For the current FY 19 year that we'll be going into, it's a cost that we'll absorb within the operating budget. It's, for the golf courses, Leslie, off the top of my head, 800,000, I think, for operating there. It's an amount that I think we can manage with on the overall operating.
Yes.
I would move in favor of the resolution if there's no further.
I heard a second down there.
Yeah, sure. I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Resolution carries. F5, resolution to recommend approval of park names for acquired properties. Ruth? Colin?
Yeah,
Someone?
that's fine. I can take it if you want to come up, though, for any questions that might arise. So we have actually before you today 3 properties that we need to officially name parks, which we haven't done this for a while. Part of it is cleaning up some older files, and other ones are just in kind of the process of actually doing the naming. I think that the first one before you is the one for the Brokaw property. Was that right? Was that the order of it?
Yeah.
Yep. So I think a lot of you will remember the city acquired this a number of years ago. It's been termed the Brokaw property up until now, in part because there was work that had to be done on the land to open it up for park use. There's actually a building which had to be demolished and some other things that had to be taken care of. So that work is very nearly done, and it seems an appropriate time to name the space. Instead of the Brokaw property, the Brokaw nature area. And in this case, too, the land actually came as a donation, and it also came with a rather healthy endowment fund. When we took on this property, we took on almost $500,000 to help to maintain it in the long run. Those monies can only be used for this property, this site. And so that's actually what has paid for the demolition of the home and other cleanup things. So for all those reasons, staff would recommend that we name it the Brokaw Nature Area.
Alan,
I heartily concur.
was that a motion?
Motion? Sure. Motion to approve the naming?
Is
Is that
there-
how, I don't know
It
what
is.
an appropriate motion is, yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bob, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Resolution carries.
Chair, I don't want to interrupt, but I would like to get my chair back from last night. If I could interrupt the meeting and take that back. I've had a busy day, so. thank you
Roll it
very
on
much.
out of there, Stephen, roll it on out.
Very particular about my chair.
They need to bring their own chair to the meeting.
I know it. I'd like to move that we get him another chair.
Should we deny that?
Yeah, please deny that request for a chair. Next up,
Next up is Onder Nature Area, which in this case is something which was, I think, assumed to have been actually named back in early 2007 and was not officially done so. So this is really cleaning up an item. It has been referred to over the years as the Onder Nature Area, so that is what staff recommends in this instance.
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
Michael, further discussion? Questions?
Where is this property?
It is
That's right here.
kind of in between Whitmore Lake Road and Pontiac Trail,
Oh, gotcha.
just to the north of Barton, and, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Resolution carries. Number 3, Colin.
Number 3 is actually the property which you just heard Ruth provide an update on in her annual update. This was acquired from the Nixon Road Associates as a part of that development. This is the roughly 26-acre parcel, which has very nice wetland features amongst other things, and it lines up to the existing Oakwoods Nature Area, and staff think because it shares many of the same features that expanding the Oakwoods Nature Area name to incorporate this land is a reasonable approach.
Questions, comments, motions? Alan? You all right? You seem puzzled.
Well, you said it's a wetland, and so it would,
No.
the wetland would acquire Oakwoods is the name. I'm not opposed to it, it's just mildly ironic. But I am willing to move forward with a motion to approve.
So that's a motion.
has
Is there a
my notes,
second?
too.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Can I ask, will these, like, so if the Onder site, everybody's been calling it Onder, is it gonna get a new sign or something, or did it already have one?
It is getting a new sign, actually. Well, yeah, it's confirmed, I see from a nodding head there, but yeah.
Okay, moving on, commission proposed business. G1, annual officer elections. I will say that I am happy to continue to do this, and I know Paige is as well, but it is a secret ballot, and everybody is on it.
So for those of you who have not had the pleasure of participating in this in past years. You have a pad of paper ahead of you. If you could make a nomination or a vote, I suppose your own vote for the chair position and also the vice chair.
Same piece of paper or different pieces of paper?
Same is fine.
And then just a point of clarification, is like the second place winner automatically the chair, or do I specifically vote for a vice chair?
You specifically vote for a chair and for a vice chair.
Thank you.
I have no idea who the current vice chair is.
That would be Paige
Paige.
Morrison, who has
Expressed an
indicated a
interest.
desire to continue, but she was not able to be here today.
I think she was gonna have the same campaign speech that David had.
Yes. You want to collect the votes? Yeah. Yeah, I have a question for you afterwards.
Shouldn't we play some music?
So the election results are unanimous in the David Santa Croce as the chair and Paige Morrison as the vice chair.
I don't know how to react. To the item G2, approval of our 2018 calendar. Is that attached, Colin?
It is.
After the bylaws? After the, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, it is in the packet.
Oh, you're right. Yes, it looks like this.
A list of dates.
It's a list of dates. Yes, thank you, Bob. We do need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Questions, discussion?
Just one discussion item. Is it possible for you to send calendar appointment requests to us?
Yeah,
That
I
would be
can.
really nice.
Yeah,
Yes, I absolutely can, and I will.
that would be awesome.
Great.
All right, so discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
I will add just a little bit on this. The attorney's office is looking to see if, in kind of the interest of everyone's time, if there are opportunities to have the LAC meeting come directly after a PAC meeting so that we wouldn't have to bring people
Yeah.
all together. They need to do a little bit of work revising the bylaws, but that is
Do the bylaws call it for
in the
separate
hopper.
meetings?
Yeah, so.
Wait, and I mean, I get separate, but they can't be, the bylaws say they can't be one after another?
No, they don't say that. Hang on one sec, let me see if I can answer.
Because I know it's been the preference right along of people here
Yep.
that we just do them on the same day. Just so it's one, you know.
And I know we just approved this, but I do want to point out that the November 20th, 2018 PAC date is just like this year, it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and I wouldn't mind preemptively canceling it. I don't know if that's,
I think that's something we look at when we get there.
okay.
We can resolve this later.
Yeah, I can resolve it.
All right, so,
if you want.
so we're going to move on. Well, it's your report. Item H, report from the Parks and Rec Manager. Back to you, Colin.
Not a great deal today. I will share that the outdoor ice rinks at Almendinger North Side and Burns, the structures are up. The water is actually in at North Side. I think it was getting put in today at Burns. and Thursday at Almendinger. I know the temperatures are warm now, but we're supposed to have a rather quick
Freeze next week.
move into the freeze. So it would be great if they are able to freeze up so that it can be enjoyed and used when the kids are out of school, amongst other things. So fingers crossed for cold weather, which is an unusual thing for me to say, but that's
That's
all
it?
for now. Yep.
Awesome. Item I, report from Rec Advisory Commission. Ruth?
I missed the meeting, but I don't know if Josh has anything to say. You missed it. We have no report.
Awesome. Item K, item J, reports from relevant commissions, committees, boards, and a task force. To the extent there are, they're attached. K, public commentary? Yes. Commissioner Grand.
Thank you. Last night at council, I just wanted to point out the tree line master plan was approved. So I know this body approved it, but it is now officially part of the master plan.
Yes.
I will review the material that the person provided for us out of the public commentary regarding the dog park at Buer. And the next step could very well be that the Park Advisory Commission can create a subcommittee to evaluate areas for dog parks. It's all kind of laid out in a rather long document that this body adopted in 2013. So after I kind of have a review of the information provided, we'll go from there. And it could be that at the next meeting, you may be asked to participate on a subcommittee. So if anybody thinks they may have some interest in that, if you could let us know between kind of now and next month, that would be great.
How many people do we need on that subcommittee?
That's really a moving target, but I would say we could certainly do with at least 2 PAC members.
And then other people?
Mhm.
Oh, all right, great. Item K, public commentary. Seeing no member of the public, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the holiday.